Well guys, this is some lunacy that would be shocking, but let's be honest, it's 2020. Now it seems you can get in trouble for what other people say, not just the words that you choose to use yourself. It is what happens when the loonies take over the asylum, I guess. Now I'm sure most of you know who Darren Grimes is, the Brexiteer who was hounded by the Electoral Commission and Ramonas for years after Brexit before finally being cleared of any wrongdoing, obviously. Because much like the Russia interference that I covered recently, it was all a load of old codswallop. Now on the subject of Darren Grimes, you might also remember back not that long ago he had the historian David Starkey appear on his Reasoned podcast, talking about all that was going on in the world and of course the ridiculous BLM movement. You might also remember the backlash that followed the interview because Dr. David Starkey took the time out to destroy the ridiculous claims these losers come up with in relation to our history or any history in general. As we all know, they want to erase real history and replace it with their own deluded version. He has a problem with that, being a historian I guess. Now I actually covered what he said before in a video so I won't go over it here, but in short he was annoyed that people are trying to fudge history so they can make it how they want it. Nothing he said was derogatory towards anyone or any race. It was his passion for defending history, not any contempt for black people or anyone else, as let's be honest, it's not even black people trying to destroy our history, it's white liberal soy boys and low-life lefty cumbuckets. These Marxist snakes are using BLM, climate change and all that dribble as a Trojan horse to force their agenda. We all know this, but it seems the police can't fathom that basic concept in 2020. Either that or Darren Grimes is obviously guilty of wrongthink by having David Starkey on there, because it would appear they have recently begun investigating Mr. Grimes in relation to a criminal charge for something David Starkey said, which I'm sure you would agree is just batshit fucking crazy, and like I've said before, we are literally moving towards the Stasi guys. It is sickening. Now the Telegraph picked up on this, so we'll take a brief look through that. It headlines, Darren Grimes under police investigation after David Starkey interview. Commenter to be interviewed on suspicion of stirring up racial hatred over comments made by historian. Which should really tell you all you need to know about the lunacy of this whole situation. Mr. Grimes, a conservative commentator, has been asked to attend a police station to be interviewed under caution after publishing a podcast in which Dr. David Starkey said slavery was not genocide because there are so many damn blacks. Which, like I said, I've covered before and was not meant in any derogatory way. And I still struggle to see how it can even be seen as racist in the first place, but it's 2020, you say boo to a ghost and you're a racist at the end of the day. The word literally has no meaning anymore. It continues though, it has been warned that the investigation by the Metropolitan Police will have a chilling effect on free speech, while Mr. Grimes has described it as an abuse of taxpayers' money, which obviously it's 100% both of them, and as we will see in a moment, I actually question how it even come about. Mr. Grimes is accused of a public order offence of stirring up racial hatred by publishing the interview on his podcast on July 2nd, the Telegraph can reveal. He has since apologised while Dr. David Starkey's career lies in ruins, with the historian set to lose all his academic titles and book deals. Because obviously when someone says something you don't like in this day and age, you have to completely cancel their life, and apparently that's what they're trying to do to Darren Grimes now, despite the fact that he never did anything wrong. Actually, tell a lie, they both did something wrong, they both apologised when neither did nothing wrong in my opinion. They shouldn't have apologised, they should have just literally told everyone to go and fuck themselves. But Darren Grimes said in a statement, at a time when many in our country are facing uncertainty and financial hardship, I cannot imagine a more contemptible way for the Metropolitan Police to abuse taxpayers' money and the trust of citizens then by investigating this vexatious claim, which obviously it is, but let's be honest, they go after people for saying mean words on Twitter, while leaving burglars to roam the street for months or years on end, committing countless amounts of crime. You know, the real crimes that actually matter they leave alone, but you say something spicy on the internet, you're gonna have a full riot squad at the door. He continued, the threat of arrest has serious repercussions for freedom of expression. His solicitor, Luke Gittos of Murray Partnership, said it was an unprecedented use of public order legislation, which obviously it is because Darren Grimes never said a single word wrong at the end of the day, and neither in my opinion did Dr. David Starkey. It continues, Mr. Grimes is being supported by the Free Speech Union, which has described the accusation against him as absurd, because obviously it is, and I would actually really like to know where it has come from. The interview provoked furious backlash when it was published on the YouTube channel Reasoned UK in the summer. Now, we don't need to read about all the things that Dr. David Starkey has lost over this, I've actually covered that before in a video, and it really pisses me off. Toby Young, the General Secretary of the Free Speech Union, said, the only hatred Dr. Starkey stirred up was against himself. Mr. Grimes himself publicly apologised for having broadcast Dr. Starkey's remarks, saying that he should have robustly questioned Dr. David Starkey about his comments. No, because it was a nothing comment, just the people who are perpetually offended are the ones who made something of this. At the end of the day, he knew at the time, and so did Dr. David Starkey and anyone else with half a brain cell watching it, that nothing he said was meant to be racist. But in 2020, anything you say at the end of the day could make you a racist bigot. It continues, plainly, Mr. Grimes would never have made this announcement if he had intended to stir up racial hatred in the course of a broadcast only days earlier. Let's be honest, Darren Grimes is never going to be sitting there condoning anyone being racist. This is just common sense. Mr. Young questioned whether journalists would now be arrested over comments made by their interviewees, and asked if similar action was being taken against the Sky News presenter who was interviewing the rapper Wiley when he made offensive comments about Jewish people. Which obviously we know is never going to happen. At the end of the day, the journalists have the right opinions and the right political views. Dr. David Starkey and Darren Grimes and many other people apparently do not. As me and many other people have said before, it's rules for thee but not for me. This is the way the world works, and especially the UK in 2020. Now at the bottom there it says Scotland Yard was passed an allegation from Durham Police of a public order offence relating to a social media video posted on June 30th. So apparently someone in Durham has decided to call the police and get them to take a look at what Darren Grimes has done, which is obviously fucking nothing. I am amazed that this has actually happened and would love to know who put this report in. And since Durham was the place that Dominic Cummings went, I expect maybe they are a little bit salty that he didn't get sacked for that or arrested. Either way, this is just complete and utter lunacy, and I would say I can't believe it's happened, but let's be honest, the police are acting like the Stasi in 2020. I expect it's only going to get worse.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.